Good morning, everybody, colleagues and guests, and good morning to Angus Council special meeting. We're here to determine a planning application, and the planning application is in Arbroath, which I'll discuss later. And I'm going to go straight to Mrs. Forsyth for apologies.
Yes, Deputy Provost, we have an apology from the Provost, Councillors Bell, Devine and Scott.
Thank you, Sarah. And item 2, this is where we ask for declarations of interest or statements of transparency. Do we have any colleagues?
No.
I'll take it no. Okay. I'm going to go to item 3, which is the introduction. It's the predetermination. In terms of Part 3 and Section 14 of the Planning, etc. Scotland Act 2006, the Council is required to hold a predetermination hearing. Following the hearing, the Council is required to determine the application. Okay. Right. Are members happy to agree this?
Yep, agreed.
Agreed.
Everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, we're all agreed. Okay. We go straight on to item 4, which is the land at Elliott Industrial Estate, Arbroath, and I'd like to invite Mr. Hunter at this juncture to address us. Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Deputy Provost, and hopefully my screen is now shared with members.
It is. Yes.
Thank you. As Deputy Provost has indicated, we're here today to determine a planning application for large-scale retail development on land at Elliott Industrial Estate.
Could I just interrupt Mr. Hunter and just ask everybody to put their microphones on mute, please? Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Happy for me to continue. Great. So, large-scale planning application for retail development on land at Elliott Industrial Estate, Arbroath. And just an image from the Angus Local Development Plan, and at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, identified by the rather indiscreet big red arrow, you see the application site itself. Now, in addition to the big red arrow, I would draw your attention to the red line, and within the red line is a pink tone. The red line identifies the application site. The pink tone identifies that the land is allocated for employment use. So that's uses within use classes 4, 5 and 6 of the use classes Scotland order. So that doesn't include retail development. So the broad principle on allocated employment land doesn't comply with the Council's development plan policies. And you'll see in the committee report that there's a fairly clear indication that the development we're looking at today represents a significant departure from development plan policy. Just looking at the site in an aerial format, we have the A92 running along what would be I think the southern southeast boundary of the application site. We have the existing Westway retail development located to the top right-hand side of the slide. And just to give some context, the total floor area within the Westway retail park, including the hot food takeaways, including the garden centre to the rear of the B&Q unit, is around just shy of 8,500 square metres. Again, features to pick out, we have Elliott Industrial Estate sitting on top of the raised beach to the north of the site. We have an unadopted road that forms the western extent of the site, and we have the Elliott Caravan site just lying beyond that. I've indicated that the application represents a significant departure from policy, but again, as you'll see from the papers, it is relevant to have regard to the planning history of the site. and in particular, the planning permission granted by Council in 2019. And the slide before you shows the layout that was approved at that point in time. So we have 7 retail units located towards the rear of the site, and 3 smaller units located to the frontage of the site. And that permission was for a combined total of around about 9,300 square metres of floor space. You can see new access arrangements proposed from the A92, a new roadway replacing the existing private roadway at the western boundary of the site, a retail unit located towards the southwest of the site on the A92 frontage. And again, maybe just in the context of some of the representations that we received, particularly from the caravan park, you can see roughly about 7 metres separation between the access road and the boundary with the caravan site itself. Maybe also just in that context, draw your attention to the northwest extent. This was a food retail unit, and sitting closest to the boundary with the caravan site was the processing area associated with the food retail unit itself. Moving on, we see some elevation drawings of the development that was approved at that time. The food unit running along into some smaller units and linking into this. So the top 2 elevations show us the units that were proposed to sit at the rear of the site, and we have the 3 smaller units that were proposed towards the frontage. Now, members determined to approve the application as a significant departure, given the significant economic benefits that it was anticipated to deliver. And you'll see that's touched upon at paragraph 9.9 in the report, where the gross value added associated with the development as approved in 2019 was estimated to be somewhere a little over £5.5 million. Moving on to the current application, we see again proposed layout fairly similar in form to what was approved previously. This time we have 5 units towards the north of the site rather than the 7 that were originally proposed, and we have this time 2 smaller units on the frontage. So overall, we're now looking at a gross floor area of about, again, just under 8,500 square metres. So a floor area that's comparable to the existing Westway retail park development. Similar access arrangements, a new light-controlled junction on the A92 with right-hand and left-hand turning lanes for east and west travelling traffic, and the realigned roadway within the application site. Again, just looking at the boundary with the caravan site, we have similar separation distance of about 7 metres between the parking spaces and the caravan site itself, and provision along this boundary consistent with the previous permission for a 2.5 metre high acoustic screen. This time the retail unit has been moved slightly to the east, and we have a garden centre located closest to the boundary with the caravan site itself. So the processing associated with the previous retail unit now located across at the eastern boundary of the site closest to the existing Asda store. We see some elevations of the buildings located to the north of the site. This would be the westernmost unit occupied by Home Bargains. We have 3 smaller units, all of which are larger than the smallest unit, which was proposed as part of the original development. And then we have a proposed food unit located at the western extent of the site closest, at the eastern extent of the site closest to the existing Asda unit. The units to the front of the site, the one on the right that we see here would be a drive-through facility, and the one on the left-hand side of the slide would be a drive-to restaurant facility. broadly, in terms of appearance, similar to that which already exists on the Westway Retail Park itself. And we have an image that shows the general nature of the development. We have the retail units located to the north of the site, the new access facility, the 2 units on the frontage. So very similar in broad terms to what was previously approved by Council in 2019. Again, separation distance that we're looking at between the proposed drive-to restaurant and the caravan units is similar to that which exists within the existing Westway Retail Park, and the relationship between the McDonald's facility there and the caravans within the Red Lion caravan site. So looking at the planning history, having regard to the development plan, in broad terms, this proposal would deliver similar economic benefits. This is just under 5.5 million GVA. The previous proposal, just over 5.5 million GVA. So similar economic benefits to those that committee considered justified approval previously. And this time, slightly less retail floor space, and that consequentially, it's estimated that impact on Arbroath Town Centre would be slightly reduced. We look at, again, some photographs of the site, just going back to the aerial image. We have the roadway, which would be incorporated within the site, new access formed in the vicinity identified by the cursor here. This private roadway does serve the caravan site. It takes access to a former sewage works, and it also takes access to a Royal Observer Corps museum facility. And you'll see we have a condition within the terms of the permission that require a realignment of this roadway prior to its closure. So we're seeking to safeguard the amenity of users of this route. It's also a core path running from the A92 up to Peasy Hill, up to the Arburlet Road to the north, and it's also serving existing uses. So we have the condition that seeks to safeguard the amenity of those users. I would also highlight that the grant of the planning permission does not affect any civil rights that landowners may have in relation to right of access. So that's a separate standalone matter in comparison to the planning situation. Again, perhaps just draw attention to the existing Westway development. And again, you'll note that the development that's proposed is fairly similar in terms of appearance to what we're looking at in relation to that development. Again, looking along the western boundary, we see the caravans within the Elliott caravan site. I've referred to the 7-metre standoff distance. The roadway itself is round about 6 metres wide. So we're probably looking at the car parking associated with the small drive-to restaurant being round about the point we see identified by the existing chain link fencing. So reasonable separation distance, and separation distance that's comparable with that which was previously approved by Council. Our environmental health colleagues have considered potential impacts in relation to noise and odour and are satisfied that those can be addressed subject to the conditions presented before you. Just another image looking at the site, and this shows the application site prior to the demolition of the factory unit that previously occupied it. So you can see factory buildings located reasonably close to the caravan site, and that distance, that separation distance, is increased, and we have the garden centre facility being the closest part of the retail units to the caravan site itself. Just looking, this is from the A92, looking in an easterly direction, application site located in the area that you can see here, stone wall which we're looking to have retained where possible, new entrance formed through it, and you can see the bus shelter that would be relocated in order to facilitate the new access point. Again, just in this slide, you'll notice the condition of the curb, the road verge to the south of the roadway. And if I show an image looking in the opposite direction, you can see a bus stop located towards Elliott. So this is to the west of the access that you see here. And again, conditions attached to the proposal require the upgrading of the Verd to create a footway link between the development site and the bus stop that we see located to the southwest. Just a view looking across the site towards the existing Westway development, the existing Asda store, round about 3,000 square metres gross floor area. So that's about comparable to the size of the largest proposed unit within the new development that we're looking at today. You can see the raised beach sitting to the north of the site. Core path runs from the unadopted roadway that we've been looking at along to Westway, located to the east. Core path and the landscaping that you see on the raised beach unaffected by the development proposal. Those are out with the application site. The application site itself fairly flat and fairly featureless at the present time. Looking in the opposite direction, this is again from the A92. You can see the existing Asda store. The new units would be located to the west of that on a similar alignment. We have the petrol station associated with the Asda unit and the hot food unit, the McDonald's unit located just to the right-hand side of the screen. But we'd have the retail units located sitting below the raised beach, car parking, and the two smaller restaurant style units located on the frontage of the site. But again, details relating to landscaping, detailed matters regarding the design and material finishes of the proposal are matters that are addressed by the conditions that are before you today. Just to conclude, this is the layout, very similar to that which was approved in 2019 by Council. The development plan position has not changed in the period since 2019. This remains a significant departure from those policies. But the extant planning permission is a significant material consideration. That development can be built. This proposal will deliver similar levels of economic benefit. The retail impact on the town centre is likely to be slightly reduced in comparison to the approved development, and that's a positive change in relation to the proposal. And again, you'll see that we have conditions that deal with retail matters that again seek to mitigate some of the impact that the town centre may experience. But consistent with the decision taken by members in 2019, this development offers potential for people to shop locally. It offers potential to reduce some of the expenditure leakage that's currently going to other centres, Dundee in particular. The layout and design is considered acceptable. Issues have been mitigated as far as they possibly can by the conditions that are before you, and the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Deputy Provost.
Mr. Hunter. And at this stage, I would invite colleagues, do you have any questions for the Hunter? And the first one I've got is Councillor Cheap.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Provost. Morning to you. Alan, just I remember going back to 2019 when this application came forward, and Councillor King at the time mentioned about continuation of the internal roadways from the existing Westway Retail Park through into this development, which would ease traffic flow on the entry and exit to Westway from the existing park, where we still see jams there. And at the time I agreed with him. I thought with the new entrance onto the main Dundee Arbroath Road, it would give fluidity between the two retail parks. Is that not being considered here at all, or is that something that can be the planning application adjusted to take that into account?
Thank you, Councillor Cheap. In 2019, that issue was discussed, but members determined to approve the application without the connection between the two retail parks at that time. And I think that decision has to be material. It's relevant to our consideration of the application at the current time. As I understand it, there are practical land ownership issues in terms of delivering that type of route, and the detail of that has not been tested through the transport assessment work that has been done in support of either the 2019 planning permission or the current application. I believe that's largely down to the difficulties with the practicality in terms of land ownership of delivering that, but there's no evidential base to demonstrate what the impact of providing such a through route would actually be on the transport network. In circumstances where council has previously determined to approve the development without such a link, I think it would be unreasonable to, at this stage, require provision of such a link, and it's not something that we could reasonably do through planning condition.
Okay, thank you. I must have got outvoted on that one. I'd forgotten. Okay, thanks very much.
You're happy with that, Councillor Cheek?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Provost.
Okay, we now go to Councillor Dunn.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. Mr. Hunter, my question's quite similar to David. At present, the large Asda lorries go down the back of Asda to obviously take their cages and all their sort of things out for stock. Home Bargains lorries are absolutely huge. And looking at the plan, there doesn't seem to be a road to the back of the store on the plan, and they're going to come in through the front access. I'm just wondering if there's any movement with that, for the back doors to be accessed on that, because there's going to be quite a lot of traffic coming through that main dual carriageway. With also there's other shops that are all going to have suppliers bringing lorries, etc. in there. Is there any room on the plans that they can deliver to the back doors? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durno. You're correct. The retail units would be serviced via the new A92 junction, but that junction has been designed and tested through transport assessment to demonstrate that it has the capacity to accommodate the service vehicles that are reasonably anticipated in association with the development. And that arrangement is the same as the arrangement that Council approved in 2019.
Can I have a supplementary question?
Indeed, I was just about to ask you, Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, I was looking at the plans on page 60 regarding that. And there's actually an old path there at the front of the site, which is about 4 metres in width. I had to look at it yesterday. Can we not incorporate that into the main road as a slip road into this entrance if there's new traffic lights, so that we don't have traffic backing up on those traffic lights? Is that something you've looked at? Thank you.
So if I can refer to the image on page 63, which is the proposed layout, you'll see that the layout for eastbound traffic, so traffic coming from the Dundee direction, there is a filter lane provided there for vehicles to turn left into the development, and similarly for vehicles travelling westbound out from Arbroath, there is a right turn harbridge provided within the layout as indicated on page 63. But as I've indicated, this is essentially the same junction arrangement as Council previously approved.
Okay, that's great, thanks. I think it just doesn't really look like you can see the filter lane on the map, so that's why I was inquiring. But thanks a lot for that, Mr. Hunter. That's really very good to know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dunn. You're happy with that. Okay, next I've got Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. My question also relates to traffic. I think everyone in this meeting has travelled past this piece of land at some point, and we all know that if you get the lights in the mini roundabout at just the wrong time, then it may take some time to get through. Additionally, if there's any roadworks going on, then those traffic lights in that mini roundabout causes many issues as well. So with the addition of a new set of traffic lights to access this new retail park, what additional work, if any, is going to be done on the mini roundabout just slightly up the road, and then the traffic lights just up from that at the entrance to the Westway Retail Park? Are these traffic light sequences going to be linked in any way? Or are we going to have a situation where the entrance to the new retail park are at green, but the traffic lights of the Westway are at red, and then of course you then have a backup of traffic if the lights aren't in any sequence, similarly with the effects of the mini roundabout. So what work is going to be done to prevent this just being a massive, big bottleneck of traffic?
Thank you very much, Councillor Gregg. My understanding is that a junction analysis has been as part of the transport assessment undertaken for the development. So that's looked at the capacity of the new junction and looked also at the capacity of existing junctions within the network. And our roads colleagues are satisfied that the various junctions that would be potentially affected by the development all have capacity to meet the new proposal. In terms of the detail of that, we do have my colleague Mr. Barnes from the Road Service on the call, and I'd maybe invite him just to say a few words in relation to that.
Thanks, Alan. Morning, members. Yes, so as Alan says, transport assessment was submitted as supporting information for this application. And just to reiterate what Alan said as well, that shows that all of the junctions in the local road network have the capacity to cope with the additional traffic that will be generated by this development. There are conditions in the report that require further details of the road junctions to be assessed, and we can look at whether or not those signals need to be linked when we assess the proposals that are submitted at that time. But just to reiterate, the transport assessment did show that there was adequate capacity within the roundabout junction at the Westway and the Westway access traffic signals to deal with the traffic that will be generated.
May I ask a supplementary, Deputy Provost? Thank you. I appreciate you saying that whatever computer modelling and things say that there is sufficient thing, and I won't dispute that. However, in my personal experience, and I'm sure a lot of members on this in the meeting today will have similar experience, there's one thing about getting into one of the retail parks, it's getting back out of it again as well. Particularly, even if things stand now at the Westway Retail Park, McDonald's is a very popular place to visit, and I don't think I can remember the last time I drove around that, well, past that, and didn't see a queue halfway around their drive-through and back out into the car park and on the road again. Similarly, with the way that the roads are worked in the retail Westway Park, if you've gone into Asda and you get it at the wrong point, you can spend quite some considerable time just trying to get out of that retail park. So again, it's the computer modelling says there's sufficient space within the network for this. However, I would hate to again get to a point where it proves that perhaps it isn't from people's personal experience.
Perhaps if I can just come in very briefly, I don't want to speak over Mr. Barnes, who's obviously the expert in relation to the matter. I think it's important to emphasise that the access arrangements are the same, predominantly the same as the access arrangements that Council approved in 2019, and that permission remains extant. So that permission could be implemented. I think the other thing to maybe pick up on is that one of the justifications for the retail development is that it will capture some leakage that's currently going to other centres, and in particular Dundee. So an element of the traffic that's associated with this is traffic that's already on the network. It's people that are travelling that route at the present time. So this will not be all new traffic that's generated by this retail development. Some of it will be displacement of vehicles that are already making a similar journey along the A92 towards Dundee. But I think as Mr. Barnes has indicated, two things really to focus on. The evidence that we have before us is that the junctions have capacity. Yes, there may be queues, but statistically, the evidence is that the junctions are at capacity, and the development that was approved in 2019 can be built. It's slightly larger in terms of its floor space. This is slightly reduced. If anything, the 2019 permission might generate additional traffic in comparison to what we're looking at now.
Councillor Gregg, are you happy with that? No, I think it's been a full explanation.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Yeah, I'll have to accept that answer.
Okay, well done. Thank you. Can I now have Councillor Doran?
Hi, thank you. My question relates to roads, but not traffic. It's related to pedestrian access. And I just wanted to clarify what the status is of the conditions attached to crossings, because these weren't mentioned in the explanation. But I think it's incredibly important that we make sure that there's a safe access for pedestrians as well, to reduce that car usage and access to the sites. So I just wanted to ask around that. I know there were conditions attached to the previous application, and I want to know if they'd be the same for the current one, and just to clarify what that would mean for pedestrian access to the bus stops and crossing the road.
Thank you, Councillor Doran, and apologies if I didn't refer to that in the presentation. But the light control junction will include, as I understand it, a pedestrian phase. So the requirement for the footway to the south of the road, which would connect to the existing bus stop, would provide direct linkage to the application site by means of the light control junction, which would include the pedestrian phase. The footway to the north of the A92, as Councillor Durno mentioned, is reasonably large. So there are, in a very local context, reasonably good pedestrian linkages, potential for reasonably good pedestrian linkages between the application site and the neighbouring Westway retail development.
Okay, just to clarify, is there a crossing going across the road to the bus stop that was shown in the picture? Just to clarify that.
Yes, there is, by means of the light controlled junction.
Great, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just distracted there because I had to answer a question, but thank you very much, Councillor Doran. And we now go on to Councillor Cowley.
Thank you very much, Deputy Provost. I'm coming at this with my environmental hat on, so I just wanted to get some clarification, if possible, on the natural environment implications. On page 12, point 9.26, it's explained that the site isn't designated for any, and I welcome the species protection statement that's included there regarding nesting birds on the site. I see that it says the existing trees that run parallel to the site frontage would be removed, which I totally understand. I just wondered if there's any way we can get an assurance that those trees will be replaced, and possibly some input from local biodiversity experts if that is something people would like to do.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdy. So there are conditions attached to the permission that require a scheme of landscaping in association with the proposal. So there will be a requirement for landscaping to be provided, and as part of the discharge of those conditions, we would undertake internal consultation with with our environmental colleagues to ensure that what we're getting is appropriate in terms of biodiversity enhancement.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Happy with that, Councillor Cowdy. That would appear all the questions from councillor colleagues. I would now like to welcome our guest speaker, Ms. Cheryl Stewart. Now, I believe Ms. Stewart's having a little bit of problems with her sound. So you're mute, Ms. Stewart. Can you unmute for a minute? We'll try to help you at this end if people will just bear with us for a moment. Can I ask John to help here? Did you hear that, Ms. Stewart? Are you maybe looking for that right now? Right. Okay. Again, Ms. Stewart, did you get that information? That it might be worth actually leaving the meeting and coming back in again? I'm not quite sure if you're getting anything from me at the moment. Can you hear the instructions? I think we're going to try some other things at our end, if people bear with. I'm taking instructions at the moment. That's exactly what we're hoping. Now she's back. How are you doing, Miss Stewart? Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me, Miss Stewart?
I haven't got a mute thing up there. Oh, I don't think I'm on mute.
I can hear you. Right. Okay, can we perhaps try to send a message to instruct?
Just adjourn for
I think we're going to have to adjourn for 5 minutes, folks. Just have to do that because it's very, very important that we hear from Miss Stewart. So if you'll just bear with us, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes. We do need to restart the live stream. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to now invite Mr. Ian Gallagher, who will speak on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Gallagher?
So please tell me you can hear me for starters.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's
Sorry about that, Mr. Gallagher.
Not at all. I commend your perseverance there. So that was unfortunate. I'll probably just start with Mrs. Stewart. We had an exchange with Mrs. Stewart in terms of the Royal Corps, and her comments were related to continued rights of access. They need access 24/7 into their site, and we did have an exchange with them to say that would be the case during the application. But as I said, that I thought I would just add that. So yeah, as you said, Chair, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Ian Gallagher. I'm a Chartered Town Planner retained by TJ Morris across Scotland. Also with me is my colleague Lindsay MacLeod, who's been working on this project, and the architect is also on the call, Peter Meggitt from Smith Design, on the off chance there's any particular questions around design that perhaps I can't answer. I'm going to keep this very, very brief. You'll probably be pleased to know. TJ Morris purchased this site around about a year ago. They own it. They haven't taken an option to buy. They've already
No, I'm unmuting again.
Shall I continue? So they purchased the site rather than taking an option. TJ Morris were established about 40 years ago by a chap called Tom Morris from Liverpool. They're now the largest privately owned company in the UK. They have about 500 stores, employing around 22,000 people. Their aim is to increase to around 1,000 stores and about 40,000 staff across the UK. This is a significant investment for TJ Morris in Arbroath and Angus, and just aligns with their continued growth plans across Scotland. I would just finish by probably saying I just want to thank Alan Hunter and his colleagues for their collaborative approach through this application. There's been a lot of hard work that's obviously had to go into this to get us where we are now. Pleased to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher, and thank you very much for your forbearance and your kindness. I'd like to go to my colleagues now, and I see the first hand there is Councillor Melville.
I do that.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Excuse me, I just had a little bit of tea there, so that's probably done that. Thanks for that, Mr. Gallagher. Thanks for your perseverance as well in the face of the technical difficulties. The question I have is about energy, and obviously the energy requirements for retail space of this size will be quite large. And given the pressing nature of the climate emergency, I just wondered if you could speak to what energy efficiency measures there are, and in terms of low carbon energy and electricity provision on the site.
That's a very good question, and you won't believe that I'm going to pass the buck. The first question I get, I'd probably, our role as planning consultant is take at a certain stage, along with the architect, who then are more involved in the delivery and through the building warrant process, etc. There's a lot more focus on sustainability and whole life carbon impact of this kind of development. Peter, would you be able to comment on that one at all in terms of TJ Morris, if you're there?
Yes, I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, obviously renewable energy, etc., is something that is very much coming forward. And with Home Bargains, we've been reviewing their recent stores for the incorporation of PVs in the roof, etc. So it is something that is very much at the forefront of the TJ Morris agenda. Obviously, we're designing the buildings to high insulation standards, and in accordance with, we've generally got better insulation than the rest of the UK. And again, we've picked up on the ability with the composite metal cladding, that that can be enhanced at some point if needs be. So the whole principle of the build, I think it was touched on in our design access statement, is a steel frame with composite panels to the roof and at high level and insulated block. The floor is insulated. So again, we're looking at the kind of whole building lifetime. Minimal energy and renewable energy through potentially PVs. Now, certainly that's, say, we've been looking at that on existing and recent TJ Morris stores. That's something that would apply to all of the major units.
Okay, thanks very much for that.
Thank you very much. Can I now go to Councillor David Fairweather? David? You're mute, David.
Well, I'm having problems today as well, but nothing new there, Deputy Provost. Mr Gallagher, obviously it's 3 years since this was last passed. We've had the pandemic. You said that you purchased it just over a year ago. I'm still getting asked by a lot of constituents, is this still going to be happening? Right, because I can assure you what I'm hearing is that the people of Arbroath want this to happen. So if it was approved today, could you tell us when the work would begin?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So we're involved probably in about 10 home bargains projects across the country just now, and I think they're a retailer who were open during the pandemic and
unknown participant is now joining.
I don't know what that was, and continue to trade through the pandemic. In terms of a site start here, I would guess at best, Councillor Fairweather, probably we'd be looking at, and Peter might have a view on that as well because he'll be involved in it. I'd say at best probably spring next year, probably more likely into early summer. And the reason being we would have to deal with all pre-start planning conditions. There'll be some site remediation. But the idea here is that the whole, and I should have mentioned, obviously, there's other units other than home bargains, but the home bargains would be the first phase of this. And I think that's probably gives a lot more certainty than the previous consent, in that you have an operator and a retailer here who's actually going to come on, do their unit in the garden centre as a first phase, and that will kick off. And then once you get that anchor almost there, you'll get interest hopefully on the other units in the park. So I think I'd say about early summer. Does that sound about right to you, Peter?
Yes, that sounds about right. That sounds, yeah. Obviously, pre-start planning conditions and also the warrant, but we would potentially stage the warrant to allow as early a start as possible.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I don't see any more hands. And we actually, hurrah, we have Ms. Stewart. So we're hoping to be able to go to it now. Ms. Stewart, can you hear me? You're on mute.
*6.
*6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hallelujah. Do you want to address the meeting, Ms. Stewart?
Yes, please. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to attend this meeting to express my concerns regarding the proposed planning application. I'm a novice with Microsoft Teams, so I've not got off to a very good start, and I've obviously missed the first part of the meeting. In principle, I am open-minded concerning the application. My main concern is to ensure that I have unrestricted 24/7 vehicular access to my property adjacent to the core 152 pathway. This access is stated in my land certificate and has been extant since the Air Ministry, as it was then, purchased the site in 1957. For background information, a number of those present know that I run a popular museum at the said property, which was the former Arbroath Royal Observer Corps monitoring post. I am now the freeholder of this property. The museum is run by a not-for-profit group made up of a team of former observers and local volunteers. The underground bunker is a listed building with Historic Scotland. Portable buildings act as a lecture room and exhibition area. We require access all year round for the visiting public, in-house maintenance, and for essential security checks. Having read the report at agenda item 4, I am pleased that there is a proposal at 9.38 whereby the existing roadway on the western boundary of the new proposed site will not be stopped up and until an alternative route is provided. In the conditions section 3B, it states that stopping up will take place before the new signalised junction is brought into use. May I ask if the alternative route for the private road users is purely a temporary route between the stopping up of the junction and the full use of the new signalised junction, when users will then be able to access the private road via the new site? As soon as work starts on the stopping up, I will require vehicular access to allow the unrestricted 24/7 access that I require to my property. My other concern is the airborne pollution that may be created as construction starts and the piles of rubble are dealt with. The initial site demolition caused my project much difficulty. The dust coated everything and everyone, and the museum's historic exhibit suffered from dust ingress in the exhibition room. Without mains, water and electricity at my site, you can imagine cleaning was not easy. I realise little can be done about the dust rising, other than maybe a working restriction in high winds, and I would be interested to hear any views on this. I heard that water dousing was used during the demolition, but this had little effect. I believe that any asbestos or other disagreeable material would have been professionally removed during demolition, and the council will have relevant documentation. With a duty of care to the public, it would be reassuring to my project to have this confirmed in writing by Angus Council for my records. To conclude, 1, I wish to preempt a situation where the private road is inaccessible either by construction work or already stopped up before access to the new proposed site is available, leaving me in a situation where I cannot access my property. I will be pleased to receive confirmation in writing that full access to my property will be available via the alternative route once the private road is no longer passable. 2, as mentioned, I will also be pleased to have written confirmation of the health and safety aspects of the rubble that will be disturbed at the proposed site, and to be advised of any weather-related restrictions that could be put in place to reduce airborne migration of the arising dust. These are my current concerns. Thank you for your time.
Very well done. Now, before we ask the applicant, we'd like to ask my colleagues if there are any questions for Ms. Stewart. I'm not seeing any hands, so I'll go to Mr. Gallagher for right of reply, if you want it, Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, certainly. There's probably a couple of things. One being, I think as Mrs. Stewart correctly said, there's a legal right of access on that road, which is obviously separate to consideration, and that applies to, I think, the caravan park as well. So that's one thing that our client has a legal obligation to maintain an access there, even through the construction. So that kind of, I suppose, sits outside planning. I think the key document here will be in the conditions, the construction method statement, and how the construction is managed, both from the 24/7 access that is required in terms of the legal obligation, and just good neighbour ethics, to be honest, during the construction period. And I think the construction method statement that is included as a requirement, the conditions will have to do that. I suppose in terms of the actual construction itself and reference to dust and disturbance, I've not, I suppose, the way that the site will be built out, I can't imagine has been absolutely finalised yet. And as I said, that will probably come through the conditions, in particular the construction method statement in terms of movement of vehicles, time of working, and any particular requirements in terms of dust mitigation. Thank you.
Deputy Provost, Chair.
I beg your pardon. There you go. There you go. First elementary mistake, Councillor Clark. I'd like to thank everybody this morning, because that brings us to the end of, unless anybody's got anything to add, that's the end of that part of the proceedings. And I'd like us to go forward now to part 2, where we determine the application. And at this stage, I'll ask for comments on the application. There's comments at the moment, councillors. And I have Councillor Dunno first. I beg your pardon, it's Councillor Fairweather. It's not showing me you in the right order. I beg your pardon. David.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Can't believe it's 3 years has passed since we last determined this. It was myself, actually, that brought an amendment in 2019 to make this happen. And I said at that time, this will bring employment into the town. It'll keep people in the town, which at this present time we know disappear to Dundee and other places. But it'll also bring in visitors. And I'm absolutely sure that this will benefit the town centre. By keeping people in the town, they'll shop in the town, but it'll also give us an opportunity, or others an opportunity, to take up any empty sites that are in the high street, simply because the town will start to be busy again. We've heard about the economic benefit this will bring to Arbroath, and it will be enormous. So I will be supporting approval. Thank you, Deputy Provost.
And thank you, Councillor Fairweather. And the next is indeed Councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I welcome this new shopping experience, and I commend the business of TJ Morris for bringing this development during the current financial climate. I do have concerns about the traffic flow due to this being the main road into Arbroath, but we have been assured by council officers that all the traffic management systems will be in place. So I will be approving this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunno. And now we go to Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Provost. Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Fairweather. I remember the 2019 meeting quite clearly. The general view was that it was much wanted by the people of Arbroath, and Councillor Fairweather has just said that. And who would I be to argue with Councillor Fairweather about Arbroath? It will keep spending local. I think one of the key points made before was a lot of the shops that were proposing to move into this development can only be found in Dundee, and that will keep that spend in Angus. It also keeps the amount of road miles down, and that's probably a good thing as well. So yeah, I'm very happy to support it. As Mr Hunter has made clear, it's against council policy, but we supported it in 2019, and that's a material consideration.
Duff, and now we'll go to Councillor Braze.
Yes, thanks, Deputy Provost. For all the reasons that we approved this in 2019, or the extant planning application, I think that the current one before us isn't materially different to that. Significantly enough for me to find any good reason why I should now want to refuse it.
Thank you, Councillor Bayes, and now Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. Yeah, I welcome the application. You know, the investments needed in Arbroath, and you know, people commuting back from work being able to stop on the way home to Home Bargains in these difficult times. I'm sure that's an option that many people will welcome, and you know, very much needed. And I think this can be a good news story for Arbroath. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, and now we go to Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I, like many others, including Councillor Durno, have serious concerns over the traffic and the issues and things that will cause, particularly people that perhaps live in our Burlet, where that may then become a rat run. However, I also have to weigh into consideration the overwhelming benefits that this will bring, not only to Arbroath, but Angus as a whole. And that is what I am most mindful about at this moment. So with that in mind, including my concerns over the traffic, I would be inclined to approve this application.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. Councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I do remember the meeting in 2019 as well. And it's amazing that it is 3 years. Like others, I support this application, and like Councillor Featherweather and Councillor Duff have said, hopefully that it'll actually attract people from elsewhere in Angus, you know, nearby, maybe even as far as Kirriemuir, to visit Arbroath, take benefit of the facility, and then go and visit places like the Abbey and the Signal Tower Museum, and indeed the High Street. So I think it's a win-win for Arbroath and for Angus. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. And I guess we've now got Councillor Nicholl and then Councillor Speed. So we've got Louise Nicholl.
I'd also like to agree with what's previously been said. The benefits that this could give to Arbroath, given the current financial times, is quite significant. And with that, I will also be supporting this application.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholl, and we go to Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Provost. Yeah, there's probably not much more I can add in terms of the benefits, but also the concerns that have been highlighted. What my hope would be, and what I think will be key to the sustainability of this and the success of this project, and what will kind of reduce some of the concerns, especially around the traffic flow, will be the 2 retail parks being able to agree shared access. I think this would be a really crucial and key feature to this project. So I certainly hope that there can be negotiations and future agreements around shared access. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. I don't see any more hands at this point. I would ask my colleagues who, if any member is presenting, to move to. No, I've got Councillor
Duff.
Councillor Duff and Councillor Bayes. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Provost. I'm very happy to move that we accept this proposal for all the reasons that I mentioned just recently. And I think I've probably got a seconder.
Yes, I'm happy to second that, Deputy Provost.
Any amendments? Nope, don't see any hand. Oh, Councillor Speed. Is that an old hand you've got up, or is it? Do you want to say something?
Sorry, I've just not taken my hand down. Thanks.
That's fine. Considering what's been happening today, Councillor Speed, I think we can let you off with that one.
Thank you.
We've got no hands, and I think then we can congratulate everybody and say, is that everybody? happy with what's been happening here and no more to say.
Agreed.
And wanted to make
Agreed.
sure, all agreed?
Agreed.
Can everybody agree that, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. And
Agreed.
thank you very much, everybody, for your forbearance. I'll not forget this meeting in a hurry, and I want to give special thanks to the officers and a special thank to this last sitting next to me, Sarah Forsyth. Thank you very much, folks, and thanks for helping me.
Well done,
Thank you very
Deputy
much,
Provost.
Deputy Provost. You did very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.